Oh, let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate the movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, Drew Lynch.
Hey, buddy. Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming through.
Of course, Jay. You and I go way back.
Way back to my first days in LA back in Flappers.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's been almost 7 years I've known you, Drew.
Yeah. Long. Oh, wow, man. When you say it like that.
I have one of these posters on here. I got you on one of these posters from like the second show I think we ever did.
That's right, man. When you say it like 7 years, that's middle school and high school put together. That's crazy.
That's a lot going on.
It's a long time, man.
It's and I will say it's been very cool to see you blossom professionally and all this cool stuff happen to you and watch your growth as a comic and see you really just start to really from our shared humble beginning. It's like, it's very cool to see you rise and get the success that you deserve.
Thank you, buddy. You too, man.
Thanks, man.
Quite honestly, you know, you've always been such a strong writer, and you've been writing on so many things lately. So it's good to watch, the success that you deserve. Also,
yeah. Well, let's talk about a movie that doesn't deserve the success that it's gotten.
Movie. I love that segue. That was so good, Jay.
I got it, man. 100-something episodes in. Donnie Darko.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think you had said that you used to like the movie, and you had just rewatched it. I didn't know that I was going to put you through rewatching it, but that's great that you do like the research for this.
It's what I got to do. I feel like I'm doing the show and my guests a disservice if I don't.
Yeah.
There's a couple times when I haven't been able to, and it just doesn't drive the conversation right.
I will preface this: the movie is an hour and 50 minutes long, and I had to break it up into 3 different days.
Really?
I'm telling you, man. Like, it's just so and what's tough is like they've got like a pretty all-star cast with it. Yeah. They've got Patrick Swayze, Drew Barrymore, Jake Gyllenhaal, obviously Maggie Gyllenhaal. I mean, they've got all these great actors in it, and it was just. I think the word that comes to mind, and I don't know if this is the same feeling that you got, but the cinematography and I think the storyline both were very, very pretentious.
Yeah, pretentious is big, bold, capital letters.
Okay,
the way I would describe this movie.
Because I was trying, like, first of all, this isn't the only time I've tried to get through this movie. I've tried to get through it 2 other times because people back when I was younger or when it came out were like, it's my favorite movie. For someone to say that that's their favorite movie is, I mean, I don't know. I don't know who I knew or who I thought I knew. But
the thing that came to mind after watching this movie, I was talking to my girlfriend about it when she had just gotten home, and I was like, this movie is like a person who doesn't watch movies and has never seen a whole lot of actually good movies. This is what their idea of a good movie is.
Yes. Yeah. It embellishes a lot on, like, it's like predicated on a lot of like teen like emotions and like playing through the eyes of someone who's going through, you know, that phase that's like, oh, everything's emotionally wrought. The stakes are so high for, but my son is going through this, and as the son being like, but you know, is it the pills? Is it is it the pressures of school and things? So that is something that I just like. I think from the beginning, good movies, I think, are really good about getting us to care about the characters. And I did not give a shit about anyone in this plot at all. Even if, like, the whole concept of it is like, it's a parallel universe, I guess. And maybe I'm just not even sophisticated enough for this film. I'm being very polite. I don't think it's that.
Very extreme. Yeah, so polite to the people who might like this movie.
But it's just like I don't care about any of the characters. Like I don't care about them as like I don't care that anything happens to this family and that a plane engine like plummets through their house and
Right.
and then it felt slower than if and when I went through school like myself, you know what I mean? And there's just so many things that like that really threw me out of it, and the cinematography being one of it. One the storyline, they just I think the director assumed that we were just going to jump on board with, oh well, this guy woke up in the morning and then like he took his bike somewhere and I guess we care now, and then I guess we care now. It was
Right.
like I don't care. I didn't care. It was like he's a kid who has like problems, but the cost benefit of me being invested in why he did what is that such a weird thing?
I appreciate the like he's throwing around cost benefit. It's good.
Well, that's what I'm saying. For me as a viewer to be invested in it, that's why it took me 3 times I just don't care, and I felt like I trudged through it, and they kind of dragged me through it in a way that was like almost abusively so. Like there was no redeeming qualities in the plot. There's no redeeming qualities in the characters, or even for why like certain characters like met each other or were kindred, because like even that felt contrived.
Right. There are a lot of sequences in this movie, and not even just dialogue, interactions between characters or the way certain shots play out. There's parts in this movie that I remember the first time it happened to me when I was rewatching it. It's like 15 minutes in, and they go finally to Donnie's high school.
Right.
And that scene, it's not even that long, but they just show the fast motion of everybody, and it pans around to pretty much all the different kid characters and Drew Barrymore and I think the dance teacher lady. Yeah. And it's just this weird sequence that doesn't really make a whole lot. It doesn't really add anything to the movie.
That's what I'm saying. There's so much fat in all of this, and here's a shot of a kid. Yeah, here's a shot of a kid doing a cocaine bump in the hallway. I was like, what high school is this?
And then it's just like, oh, it's so clear that this is the director of the movie thinking, man, isn't this cool?
Yeah,
this is so cool what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't play.
No, it does not. It's like I think it makes me think he thinks that we're stupid enough that we're dumb enough to be just on board with. Oh, I see what he did. That was art.
The crazy thing to me about this movie, and so this movie came out in 2001,
right?
And Richard Kelly he's sort of a recluse director wise because he made this movie. It came out at Sundance and got rave reviews at Sundance.
What?
But it also almost went direct to video. It almost was a TV movie. Yeah. And somehow, because it was supposed to come out right around September 11th.
I see.
And they were freaking out because they didn't know how to market it, given that there's a jet engine heavily playing in the plot of the movie that falls through a house.
Yeah.
So, but it almost went. But Christopher Nolan, of all people, came in and stepped in and made the film company, the studio, put it in theaters.
Wow.
And it didn't do very well in theaters. It was a big flop. And then it sort of found this new life on home video when people who presumably it's a lot of pretentious high schoolers who were the same way I was when I watched this movie.
Right.
It's like, you're reading on your Tumblr and you see, people are throwing around screenshots and quotes from this movie and it seems really deep and you're like, it's about time travel and it's about love. And it doesn't really, and then you watch it as that age and you're like, this said something to me. This is speaking to me. And then you watch it when you actually have context for what some of those emotions might be and for what the things that you felt at that age actually mean. And you're like, what was I thinking?
Well, yeah. I 100% agree. And I think like there's also something to be said for someone who can like depict teenagers that are in a way that's not just one note. And everything, all the actors that are around Jake Gyllenhaal's character, and Jake Gyllenhaal included, who I think is a very seasoned and depth actor, like it's one note. Like I think that's the challenge, is trying to find something that, and maybe it's because like when it first came out, like my peers enjoyed it because maybe they connected to it, but watching it now as an adult, I was like, to think that could be how someone in high school is like depicted. There's just no depth to any of like the actors. I mean, I think the turmoil of Jake Gyllenhaal's character is something that is arduous, but I don't think that it's played in a way that is real. Like when I watched like 8th Grade, that like Bo Burnham did,
I loved 8th Grade.
It's so like it's so much about like the anxiety of that. It's almost the exact opposite, I think. Like he plays it, he gets the actors who play people around that age to be not one note. And this feels so just like, and it also felt like it was such a cumbersome, all the conflict in it was so cumbersome. Like there was like, oh, well, there's Patrick Swayze's character who is like a really bad guy. And then we're bringing in like the influence of God and balancing it with the equilibrium of love and fear. And which are you? But Jake's doing pills, and his sister's getting into Harvard, and but the family's, but the young daughter, she's got a dance thing, so the mom's got to be gone. But it's almost Halloween. But it's like, who wrote this? Like, it's condense it into a thing.
Too disparate. Everything's too disconnected.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know when you watch a comic who like goes on stage, like I don't necessarily want to have to bring it to like comedy, but when I felt this way, it was like, it's like when maybe a comedian goes on stage and they're setting up a lot of things, and there was like, they're all open ended. They didn't. The ending of it was not retrofitted to why you set it up. So that's what I'm saying when there's all that fat. And it was just like, you asked so much of me as the audience member to just accept just blindly at the beginning, when it was not a very clear, like, oh, this is the conflict. Like I felt like if it was just about like the teacher, or if it was just about like the schizophrenia, or if it was just about time travel, but he tried to do it all. I was like, are you trying to do all movies in the one? It was
too much.
It was so much, man.
There's so many parts of this movie that really it just feels like and not even just like some of the dialogue where it doesn't make much sense at all for them. The characters are literally saying one thing and then immediately acting in a way that is completely separate from the thing that they are saying. Right. And then they have to explain it away. And their performances, I mean, there are good actors in this movie. Yes. And their performances make they make such little sense.
No sense. Yeah, dude. It almost makes it seem like the acting is bad, and it's not. I don't think it was. I think it was just like the writing just doesn't make sense, or it just.
It's the one scene that really stuck out to me, and I say this in particular because I watched this sequence like 4 or 5 different times because I kept nodding off while I was watching this movie, and I kept rewinding it just to be like, no, I'm going to power through this for Drew. I got to watch this movie again. But it's this. It's like it's right after Donnie starts dating Gretchen,
right?
And they are walking by the golf course, and they're talking about like, hey, we've been going together like 2 months now.
Right.
And she's like, do you want to kiss me? And then he tries to, and she's like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah. And there's a fat guy watching us.
Right.
How weird was that? It was like you chose it was almost like a gag in the middle of the whole movie. She's like, I want the timing to be right. Like, there's a fat guy over there with sunglasses. Like, isn't that what she said? She was like, there's like a fat guy with sunglasses over there watching us.
I want there to be beauty in the world. And she's like, also, there's a fat guy.
Yeah, we were like,
there's so much weird, like the comedy in this movie. I appreciate a movie that can combine drama and comedy. And
of course.
This movie, it feels... I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. It feels like it's maybe 5 or 6 different movies, all separate. That there's like... The scenes, there are parts in this movie that I was like, oh, I actually appreciate a tiny little bit of this, like the scene where they're doing the dance, the sparkle motion. I'm like, this feels so weird, and I don't like this. And then at the very end, they have the shot from behind of like them in front of the audience, and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool shot.
Right.
But it's clear that this is being played for laughs.
Yeah.
And I find no reason to laugh at this.
No. What was up with the Smurf scene?
Right.
Do you remember that? Like Donnie is shooting bottles angrily because he's mad all the time, and he's just shooting bottles. And then they go off. Then these two friends behind him are going off about Smurfette, and then it's like. And the significance of that scene was just to be like, man, that old lady's weird. Roberta's Miss Sparrow, she's weird down there. Mm-hmm. But they made this whole other like thing, like where it was just like, are you guys doing? Are you doing like a bit or whatever? Just do it right to camera if you're gonna try to be like own the fact that why are you trying to be subtle? You're trying to like finagle a silly little thing,
right,
guys? And then like Jake like snaps and is like. Donnie is like snaps and is like, guys, they're all asexual. All the Smurfs are asexual. Papa Smurf's not into Smurfette. She came from an outside colony, and I was like, what, dude? I watched this movie by myself, and I'm looking left to right in my apartment. Like, am I crazy?
Am I getting punked right now?
Am I crazy?
Even the scene at the very beginning of the movie where it's them around the dinner table and it's Maggie Gyllenhaal and Jake Gyllenhaal telling each other like suck a fuck.
Yeah.
And it's just like that scene feels like a bad SNL sketch.
Yes, it does.
Where they're breaking in the movie. It feels like they kept it in just because it's gonna make you laugh that Maggie Gyllenhaal and the dad are both laughing because they're breaking character in the scene.
100%. I was like, and also, what family gathers around a dinner table for pizza? It's never happened. And also, the mom's drinking wine with pizza. I was like, we're off to not a good start. This is the first scene.
If I'm eating pizza, it's because my parents are out having a date night and I have a babysitter there.
It's crazy, man. I was like, what? Like what I've never seen any family that just like, guys, we got pizza. Let's just sit around the table and chew it while we stare at each other. Like, do another thing.
Also, pizza on a school night?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. We're getting pizza on a Friday or bust.
Yeah. And if my parents ever got me pizza, it was because they didn't want to see me. They were like, we got you a thing. We're gonna be somewhere.
Right. I don't want anything to do. So okay, this is a movie that. It has found this crazy life to the point where before Richard Kelly made any other movies, because he's only directed 2 other movies besides this,
which are
Southland Tales and The Box. And Southland Tales I never saw.
I haven't seen that.
The Box I did. I saw The Box opening weekend in theaters.
What's The Box?
It's a movie that's based on a Twilight Zone episode with Cameron Diaz and James Marsden and Frank Langella, but only Cameron Diaz is on the posters.
Right.
Because she was the only person who was a big enough star at the time when it came out. And it's about, there's a box with a button in it, and if they press the button, then one random person dies, but they get $1 million. And so that's the whole premise of the movie. It's very weird. Like, we're going to do some weird, trippy, philosophical stuff that Richard Kelly clearly likes to live in.
Yeah.
But he made this movie, and it got so popular. And by the way, this is like the things that people are saying about this movie at the time that it comes out. I am shocked that there have been no retrospective. They're saying stuff like a daring, original vision packed with jarring ideas and intelligence.
What?
It could take you deeply. It could take you to a deeply emotional place lying dormant in your soul. And then, so everybody got this. Everybody was so thrilled with this fucking movie. And they took it and made a director's cut. It's 20 minutes longer.
Oh my God.
And spells out some of the specifics that keep it, because this movie's also extremely ambiguous for a lot of it.
Yes.
And they take that and they spell out some of the specific things about it being in an alternate universe.
Right.
And they explain a lot of stuff. And people responded negatively to that.
They responded negatively to being told what
the actual plot of the movie is.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Because this movie...
Because if you knew, it's going to upset you.
You're supposed to be able, I guess, to throw your own interpretation on this movie?
I guess so. I would love to hear what some people's interpretations
of the
no idea.
I really don't know.
I mean,
why people like this movie.
It's like what about also the thing where like the very end where like the two like Donnie and Gretchen, they go to like that little bunker thing or whatever, and then the two bullies like show up, and then also casting Seth Rogen as a bully. I was like,
so
what?
Weird.
I was like, what are you doing?
I didn't even recognize that was. I mean, I think when I saw this movie, it was right before Knocked Up had come out, and so. But I have no context for seeing Seth. I'd never watched Freaks and Geeks. I hadn't seen.
I think this was in between
him.
Freaks and Geeks and whatever Seth's next thing.
But I didn't. But I was like, this is weird. I mean, it was like, I guess this is just a guy. But I'm not remembering that at all.
And the first day Gretchen showed up, Seth and they're like not bully. I guess they're bullying Gretchen or whatever. He goes, "Nice boobs," is what he says.
Right.
I was like,
and they bullied her in class just by being like, "But didn't your dad stab your mom?"
Yeah.
And then it's just like playing. It's more playing for like uncomfortable laughs.
Yeah, and also it was just like that was another thing we were just supposed to accept. We're just like, oh, okay. She's got like a crazy I didn't have any more to give, man. I was destitute. I was just like, I don't have any more emotional like stock. You can't they were just like, well, isn't that because like your mom or your dad your dad stabbed your mom or whatever,
right.
whatever the line is. And then in my brain I was like, dude, I have to now write this in my mental detective notebook because somehow this movie's gonna bring all these parts together, and it just doesn't. It asked me to accept so many things and then just left it like not tied up at all.
Right. There's so many parts of this movie. There's also, oh my God, this when she does die, and she gets run over by a car, and it's the most looking like everything's okay getting run over by a car you could possibly see. Like she has no blood on her. She gets murked by a car. Like straight completely run over.
Yes.
You don't hear any screams.
No.
There's no like bones cracking. There's no blood on her face.
She's taken a car before.
She took a full car to the face and is fine. And the only reason we know she's dead is because a scene later Jake Gyllenhaal throws her in the car and she's pale.
Carries her miles, by the way.
By the way, he does not look like he can carry anybody for any long. He can barely carry this movie.
Yeah, nice, Jay.
Thank you.
But also, wait. How are we also not talking about the fact that Seth Rogen like shoves her and then she just is on the ground
and just stays on the ground?
Yeah, she just stays on the ground. I was like, you deserve to get run over. If you there was no way that that was another thing where I was just like, wait, how could I couldn't buy that at all. He was just like, stay down, and she's like moments before she's like, Donnie, or whatever, and then a car just kind of like, you were in the road, you were like, it just the injury didn't warrant.
Also,
they're saying
They're saying it's the cops. It's clearly not the cops.
Yeah,
there are no sirens.
Yes.
Why would this movie makes very little sense? And this is a question that I have to pose to you.
Okay.
Which is there is for me one redeeming quality to this movie.
Okay.
And that is Jake Gyllenhaal's performance.
Yeah.
I think Jake Gyllenhaal is one of the best actors of our time.
So
I don't
good.
know how he hasn't won an award.
So good. He will.
What do you feel how do you feel Jake Gyllenhaal does in this movie compared to all of the crazy nonsense that's going on around him?
So here's the thing: is my first experience with Jake Gyllenhaal was this movie.
Okay.
So
I think mine too, probably.
Yeah. So when I first watched this, which first tried to watch this movie, I was very much repelled by him as an actor because of how clouded the plot made him as an actor. I think he's an amazing actor in general, and just seeing some of the things he's done since, I mean, that probably is hard to not even bring in that bias into this performance in this movie. But I was too distracted by everything else that was happening that I just was mad. I was mad, so I wasn't able to separate. And that's my fault. But I wasn't able to separate being like, you know what, the performance was still like, I think if you can be given like dog shit and still make it like workable,
Right.
like that's the job of an actor. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Not everything is going to be good material. And in my opinion, I thought like a lot of the plot points, like I said before, I'm iterating this, but the plot points, a lot of the characters, the conflict, the even the dialogue itself was very contrived. And for him, I still think he, you know, a lot of the scenes that he did with Frank, I really enjoyed. And yeah, I mean, he, like I said, like he has the most in-depth performance, I think, which is good. But again, it still weighs pretty heavily on it still weighs on me knowing that I can't give him and his performance a fair chance.
Right.
Based on.
It's hard to give, like, I remember seeing one of my favorite Jake Gyllenhaal performances is in Nightcrawler. He's so good in that.
Oh man.
And there's a lot of that deep level of creepiness,
Right.
that he is very developed in Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
That sort of plays in this and it's a lot of nonverbal stuff where he's doing the thing where he's like he's low to the camera
Right.
and he's looking just out of the top of his eyes.
Right.
And a lot of that happens when he's in these weird sort of, I guess, schizophrenic episodes is probably
Yeah.
the best way to call them.
Right.
He leaves the movie theater. By the way,
This
how
chick
is
doesn't
no
wake
one else
up
at the movie
yeah,
theater?
and also she didn't wake up. He goes and burns down a house and comes back, and she's like,
still
"Oh,
awake.
how long was I out for?"
She's done. She's not even close to waking up. And how is no one, this is a gigantic movie theater doing clearly some sort of a big festival around Halloween, and they're the only two people in there,
yeah.
in a special engagement. This is the kind of shit that like Eventbrite will sell out for.
Yes.
Everything, you're gonna standing room only.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
blows my mind that, but there's like beautiful performance-y parts where
Yeah.
he got nominated for, I think, best, let's see. He got nominated for some stuff, best male lead at the Independent Spirit Awards. He was nominated for, that was it. Best female lead or best male lead. It got nominated for a lot of stuff like best first feature and best first screenplay, and I don't understand why. I guess people are just like, oh, look at all these ideas. This is crazy. Wow.
I think so. I think I figured it out. Like, I think the reason that my judgment is so clouded on watching his performance is because like I said, my first introduction to him was this, and then I couldn't get through it, and then seeing some of the stuff he's done since then, like Nightcrawler and I can't remember that other one that he did where he's in Texas.
Oh shoot, I can't
even remember what
I can't
it's
remember
called.
that either. I want to look up some Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. But he's like End of Watch also just an amazing.
I've heard he's great in
Have you
End
not
of
seen that
Watch.
movie?
Never
Jay?
seen it.
Jay, when you get like later this week, whenever you get a moment, watch that movie. Watch it. It's so good.
I've heard that's the thing I love. I've heard Prisoners and Enemy are both great.
Yeah. Prisoners is great.
I've heard he's really good in Zodiac.
Zodiac is which one is that?
That's the one. It's a David Fincher movie. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr. It's about the Zodiac killer.
Gotcha.
So
he plays the Zodiac killer?
No, he plays a detective, I think.
You know what? I think I've seen that movie. It's
He's he's a journalist. Robert Graysmith. He's the person who's
That's right.
getting
right.
the letters.
That's right. And then there's another one. What's the other? What's the movie that like came out like 2 years ago? It was.
There's. Let's see.
It's like it was like the.
I'm looking up. There's.
It was like a thriller. It was called.
Is it Nocturnal Animals?
That's it. Yeah. That was with Amy Adams.
Yes.
He's so good in that. He's got scenes in there that are just great. But in my opinion, some of the best work I've seen him do was in Nightcrawler and was in End of Watch. Anyway, so I'm a huge fan of his, and I've seen all of those movies since going back to watch Donnie Darko. So seeing him more seasoned now and then going back, I was just like, oh, okay, it's not it. It's a little bit. It's underwhelming when you watch it in that order, rather than being like, But again, I don't want to take away from the fact that I still think he's a great actor. It's just like, again, this movie just asked me to accept so many things just blindly, and I can be open to doing that, but there has to be payoff. There has to be
right.
Something has to be vindicated at some point.
Yeah, the payoff can't be a sequence at the very end of the movie where time travel happens, I guess, and then you play the sad piano cover of Mad World.
Yeah,
over literally just people just face just going.
Yeah,
and you don't know what's going through their head, but you're supposed to. I remember in high school, I did a play in high school where we used the Mad World version from this movie in some sort of a dramatic context, as you do with a song like that. And I remember I'd never seen Donnie Darko, and I was like, "Oh, this is a really sad song," and I listened to it all the time when I was an angsty teenager.
Yeah,
and then I'm sure I was like, "Oh, this is fucking brilliant high art." Watching that sequence at the time, and I'm watching it now, and I can't help but laugh at how disconnected it felt like a parody of itself at that point.
Yeah,
that's not where your movie should end up if you're trying to make this serious, interesting movie.
Yeah, it was so random. Like the ending is, all right, Jake Gyllenhaal, you go back, he's laughing now because he's laughing at the stuff that like didn't happen or did.
Right. Then he gets to I don't know, dude.
And then he goes to sleep, and then the jet engine hits him, and then his whole family's like sad, and then it ends with Gretchen being like waving at the mom. And the mom's like smoking and then like waves back. And I was like, what is that a nod to? I don't even know what that means.
I don't get it.
I don't get that either. I get the idea. It could have been so much simpler if like literally, like this is what I mean, is the director, and in the writing and in the direction, it could have been simplified and cut down, and it just didn't. Do you know what I mean? That makes so much more of an impact when less is more. But here's a perfect example. Had Gretchen rode up on her bike, she was like, what happened here? And then they were just like, then the other little kid was like, oh, there was someone died, my neighbor. What was his name? Donnie Darko. Do you know him? No. That's so much more powerful rather than just standing there and then one more look on the sad mom. Let me wave at the mom, and then the mom waves back, and then the kid next to Gretchen
plays like a joke.
Yes, it does. I was like, what is going on? I was like, what is happening? I wanted it to like pan back to the mom, and she was doing different things. Like she was like juggling, and then like it panned back, and she's like pumping air balloons. Like it was that clown-like to me. How it was laughable and how zany it was, and I was just like, what is going on?
It's so weird that, man. I hope that there's this part where I was reading about reviews of the movie and the sort of the retrospective look that people have taken at the movie. And Kevin Smith is a huge fan of Richard Kelly and a big advocate, to the point where he did director's commentary with him on the director's cut.
Wow.
And he says, and I really don't know how accurate this is, but he says that basically he views Richard Kelly and Christopher Nolan as very similar filmmakers, to the point where the only difference is that Christopher Nolan got picked up by the studio system very early and was able to make high art sort of movies with a big studio budget, and Richard Kelly's been left in the dust. And he's like, I just hope that someone Christopher Nolan's Richard Kelly someday. And I don't think that that's the case at all.
To me, it could not be perceived as further from the truth.
I think Richard Kelly is a guy who is doomed, unless he can get and figure out how to edit and condense, is doomed to make movies that are nonsensical and incomprehensible for the rest of his career.
To me, it's what it felt, and that's why I was nervous in coming to do the podcast, because I thought very much like I was gonna just come in under it. I was just gonna be like, maybe I just don't get it. Maybe I'm like I'm just not elevated enough as an individual to understand it.
Right.
And then, I was like, okay, I guess I get it. There's like a current universe, and then there's like a like not a parallel universe, but like a
They call
like a
it-
mock universe or something.
They call it a tangent universe.
Tangent, that's right.
In the
Yeah.
in the
movie.
in the movie, which you have to read. By the way, the only way you're going to know this is if you read the book that came out as a special edition of the DVD of the movie.
How are you making a movie about a book? I was like, you guys are going backwards. What? Yeah, it was like, why don't you guys make a movie about a play, make a movie about a book that's about a play, that's about a poem, that's about a, like, how far back in
It's about a cave painting.
Yeah, exactly. How far back in the art like trajectory did you want to go back? Like that to me should be the most damning piece of this whole thing is like you made a movie about a book. Not based on a book. You made a movie about a book.
You know what's crazy though is the people who inevitably are going to throw shade at us for our opinion on this movie.
Yes.
Are going to say that exact thing that you were afraid that I might say, which is, oh, you guys are dumb. You're not elevated enough.
Yeah.
No, you guys are fake elevated.
Yeah.
There's nothing to get in this movie.
I'm convinced everyone, no one knows what happens, and no one knows what the ending is to that movie, but they are saying that they know it. They're saying they get it.
Yeah. Why else do you think everybody got mad when an unambiguous ending to this movie came out in a director's cut?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And it is. They made this movie is no one knows the ending. And no one knows what the movie's about, but they pretend like they do, and in that way, no one talks about it. It is Fight Club, but as the movie. It is. I don't know. It's pretentious Fight Club. That's what it is.
And Fight Club's already pretty pretentious as
It is.
Oh,
it is more pretentious than Fight Club.
Well, Drew, hey, I'm glad that we were able to share in the misery of this movie together.
Jay, honestly, thank you for not making me feel like an idiot. Like because I was prepared to come over here, and I was like, Jay is going to be like, no, it's because of this and because of this and because of this, and I'm glad that we had a like opinion.
I'm glad that I don't have the mental capacity of a 17-year-old anymore, and can say, oh, this movie actually is pretty dumb.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody wants to complain about our opinions, where can they find you on social media, Drew?
Sure. Just my it's all the same. It's just Drew Lynch. I mean, pretty much everywhere. And if you want to come at me, like that's I mean, I understand it, I guess.
Hey, come at the king and don't miss, because Drew will get you back.
Yeah.
You can find me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for show dates. And if you like the podcast, tell a friend about the show, join the Facebook group, and subscribe and all that fun stuff. It's a good time. This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.
Nightcrawler. Like End of Watch.
Like End of Watch.
That's it.
Go see End of Watch.
Go see End of Watch.